Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by London.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Bob, and you are here for the Rangers Journal lunchtime news show on Friday, the 30th of January. I've got two excellent guests with me today. Doug, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. As I was saying earlier, happy it's a Friday, so looking forward to the weekend.
Same here. And Billy, how are you today?
I'm good. It's nice to be excited every weekend now. You know, you think at the start of the season, and I'd never felt more apathetic, and I think a lot of us felt the same the way the season was going. It's just incredible to think how we've gone from that to, all right, Porto's out the road, let's get to the Hibs game. So yeah, buzzing.
Yeah, no, I think we're all in the same boat, especially after last night's showing. But before we get into things about the Porto game last night, and obviously looking ahead to Sunday, I'll get the admin out the way. So today's pod is proudly sponsored by the good guys over at the famous Bluebells Bar in Porto del Carmen in Lanzarote. If you're over in Lanzarote, definitely find a warm welcome at the only Rangers bar in Puerto del Carmen. It's family friendly, eat, drink, chill or party. Yes, they show every Rangers game live. I've also heard they show the occasional journal episodes, so please make sure you check us out when you're over there. There's nothing better than sitting overlooking the ocean with a beer or cocktail in your hand on their sun-kissed balcony or in a bit of shade if it's too hot. So when you're down in Lanzarote, if you're making a plan to go on holiday this year, because I know it's certainly cold outside at the moment, please pop in and say hi to the folks at the bar in Bluebells Bar. The other thing that we could mention as well, as you'll see in the top corner over on this side, thankfully I've pointed in the right direction today, is our QR code for our Etsy shop. We have got some jumpers and t-shirts and mugs and some accessories over there, so if you want to support the journal, then please scan in with your QR code, head over there and buy some merch to support the folks here at the journal. Every little helps, as some famous shopping chain does say. So yeah, if you can, please do so. We're very grateful for any purchases made. But with that being said, we will move nicely on to the game last night. And again, just to echo the thoughts of the guys, I know, Doug, you were on the post-match last night, just to echo our thoughts with the supporter that sadly passed away before the game overnight from Wednesday into Thursday. So just again to echo the thoughts of the guys here and the rest of the folks at the journal, obviously passing on our condolences to the man and his family who passed away. So sadly, we've seen that a couple of times over the last couple of years, so hopefully we don't see it anytime soon. But kind of moving past that, we'll move on to the game. Doug, I know you spoke about it last night in the post match, but yeah, obviously it was really a kind of game of two halves. We were okay. First half, second half, obviously didn't concede, but obviously the result wasn't the greatest considering the run that we've been on domestically of late.
Yeah, that's it. It was it wasn't the worst performance ever, but it was one that was full of those individual errors that were just strewn through the team in the first half of the season, and just we've kind of reared their ugly head again. So it's a disappointing end, but at the same time, Porto are a very good team as well. A couple of their players like Mora and Mura, the similarly named duo, both really good players, both gave us an absolutely torrid time as well. It's a disappointing end to what has been a disappointing European campaign this season. So it's now in the rear view, and it's just all eyes forward for the domestic now, with a double that's there to be won.
Yeah, agreed. Billy, what were your thoughts on the match? Doug covered most of it last night on the post match, but maybe just to get your thoughts on the game as a whole.
I mean, similar to what Doug was saying, I guess it's one of those games where we didn't have an awful lot to gain, other than had we got a doing, you're worried about the psychological impact on the players. To be honest, it's another one of those games that's sort of fallen quite nicely for us. Having got the result against Ludogorets, we've got the winless streak off our back. Porto are effectively a decent Champions League club playing in the Europa League. We've gone there, we've scored first. A lot of these younger players now will be building up experience and confidence and playing at that level. It was disappointing that we showed a little bit of the old fragility in terms of like 3 goals in 15 minutes or whatever it was. So that and we all can see the weaknesses in the likes of Tav, but that's not Tav's fault, as I've said many times on here. Like, the fact that Tav hasn't been replaced in the last 2 years is not something we can pin in James Tavernier. He hasn't been in charge of recruitment. The game itself, though, I'm not sure how Magoma's looking, but the main thing was getting out without injuries, not taking too much of a dunt to the confidence, and getting on to the league game. And I thought it was a decent showing, going up against a team that we knew are a level or two above just now in terms of the rebuild. And I don't think 3-1 in the way we played would be too much of a dunt to the confidence. I think we'll just get back to it. And if anything, playing Hibs after playing Porto, you think would be in good nick, because you're playing against better players. So when you go up against Hibs, that gives you a wee bit of an edge, hopefully. Same as when we used to play Juventus and get shellacked 4-0 in the Champions League, we'd then go and horse someone in Scotland the week after. So I'm hoping that happens.
Yeah, I think we'd all be happy with that come late afternoon, early evening on Sunday, Billy. Just from my own thoughts on the match, and again, just as you said, I think we played well. Early parts of the first half, obviously got the goal ahead with Gassama with a header. Again, good to see Curtis starting the match. I thought he played well for the time that he was on. He certainly has made a case for the defence of keeping him and not sending him out on loan. Obviously, we'll need to wait and see what happens over the next couple of days, whether that comes to pass or not. But I certainly think we were bright in the kind of first 15-20 minutes. Just as the manager said, we've had obviously a poor kind of 15 minutes from the kind of half hour onwards. Conceded the 3 goals. Obviously, probably all somewhat poor goals to concede. But again, it's probably just our European season as a microcosm of the failed Martin, Thelwell and Stewart experiment. So for me, second half obviously a bit more defensively secure with Suter coming on. Obviously another few changes were being made just to keep legs fresh for the weekend. But yeah, I think overall, it was probably a poor end to a poor European campaign, considering how well we've done in past years. But Doug, maybe just to touch on it just very briefly again, I know you had mentioned Curtis last night as your man of the match. Was there anyone else that kind of stood out to you from the team last night that I would say deserved pass marks, or anything you want to highlight?
Well, obviously, I thought Gassama did well to getting his goal. Curtis, I thought the front three were reasonably good. And I think Diomande grew into the game over time as well. And I'd probably give a shout out as well to John Suter, because he came on and seemed to settle the defence down a little bit and sort of shored things up. And obviously I think we were better in that second half. So those are the kind of the main ones. I think everyone else was kind of just a wee bit meh. So didn't quite get into the game as much as we'd have liked. But yeah, those would be the main guys.
Sure. And Billy, what about yourself? I know that we had the likes of Moore and Asgard and Atman come on kind of second half. Obviously keeping legs fresh. I didn't think Ant-Man did very much second half to again build a case for him to be included in the starting lineup kind of going forward. What did you take any thoughts from Ant-Man's performance last night when he came on?
From Ant-Man, I'm presuming that Danny Rule seems very good at improving players, and I'm presuming that he's seeing something in training that he thinks he can work with, something that he thinks is going to be useful in the second half of the season if we're not considering letting him go. There's supposed to be interest from likes of Feyenoord, so if we're not letting him go, he must be seeing something. it is a bit disappointing that of the players that have come in, he's the one who hasn't really shown much of a bump under Danny Rule so far. So we'll trust the manager in this. If he keeps him around, then I'm presuming he's got some sort of idea of how he wants to use him. And it might not be the way we would like to see him used. You know, a lot of times Gassama's played on the right wing, and we all know he's more effective on the left. So trust the manager in that. What I find kind of interesting though is I'm a bit of a sort of like on the fence like person with Finlay Curtis, or have been, because I think he can finish. He's got a goal threat, which is good, but I've questioned whether at this stage he's offering enough to the team. And I've kind of come round in that a wee bit the last couple of games, because I'm looking at someone like Mikey Moore, who is much more talented and, you know, physically probably ahead in terms of development. You know, he can beat players, he can do things that probably no one else in the team can do. But Mikey Moore has not actually been that effective since the Old Firm game. And, you know, I remember seeing him the game after, and he looked like what he was. He looked like an 18-year-old kid really enjoying his football, going on amazing, you know, like full of confidence. But he was doing that thing that young players do. He's not releasing the ball early enough. He's not looking up. He's not making the right decisions. He's running into dead ends. He's beating a couple of players, but then it's not going anywhere. This isn't a criticism. That's what a player that age is probably going to do. And then I look at Finlay Curtis, a more limited player, like a player who's behind in his development at the moment. But what does he do last night when he gets the ball? Gets the ball, drives into space, whips it in, and we've got a goal. And I'm kind of thinking at the moment, I'm not saying you know one's better than the other, but if sometimes it's better to have a limited player who just gets on with what they're good at, rather than a super talented player who's finding himself. So I think both have got a lot to offer in the second half of the season. And Finlay Curtis has sort of won me around with his performances, because, you know, like Mikey Moore could do with a wee bit more of that sort of directness, where he actually thinks, right, I could beat three players here, but is there a pass on? Is there a cross on? So yeah, it's interesting actually, because like I say, Finlay Curtis has done what players should do. He's kind of turned my thoughts around with his performances, and I would be the same as you guys. I'm kind of, from being happy to see him going to a Kilmarnock for the second half of the season, I'm actually now thinking he could have a part to play. You know, you think about, like, you know, when we won the three in a row under Watty, and you know, players like Greg Wild haven't done massive amounts in the game, but they were useful to us in that run-in, and you know, they were useful. They were the right player at the right time. So yeah, I'm kind of inclined to hold on to Finlay Curtis. It'll be interesting to see if Danny Rule thinks the same.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a case for rotation there. You know, they're both probably, as you said, Billy, kind of inconsistent due to, you know, the experience part of it. They're both young players. Obviously, Curtis being our own youth product, you know, maybe gets it a bit more than Mikey Moore, but obviously Mikey Moore has shown in flashes the quality that he's got on and off the ball. You know, I think maybe this, you know, for the remaining games, I think it's 15 or 16 games this season that we've got domestically, obviously not including the cup games. It would certainly be good to have both of them there for rotation, and again, just that competition for places. I know that we've brought in, you know, like Scott Wilson, who's likely going to be a starter most weeks than not if he's fit and ready to go, and barring any suspensions, he'll probably be one of the main wingers. You know, you're then looking at that rotation between, you know, Curtis, Gassama, Ant-Man and Moore for those kind of wide berths. If you're kind of just pinning, you know, Scott Wilson into that kind of, you know, right hand side. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how Danny Rule plays that out over the coming games. And again, you know, we're obviously the end of the transfer window is on Monday night, so you know there may be some late drama. Not that we're in the know or anything like that, but yeah, you know, I'm hopeful that we don't have any late drama, but you know, that there could certainly be a set of dominoes falling in place depending how other moves pan out. We'll wrap up on the Porto discussion just by again just mentioning the aftermath. I know that the fans were kept in the ground. I think it was mentioned in the group chat for around 45 minutes. So again, that wasn't great to hear that there were kept back. I understand there may be security reasons around that, but it's never nice to hear that you're kind of detained for a great length of time after the game. So moving on from that, we've got the game coming up on Sunday, but obviously the greatest talk that everyone wants to discuss is the transfer window, which is ending, as I said. I think it's 11 o'clock on Monday night. There has been further rumours out today that we've made an improved offer for Ryan Naderi for Hansa Rostock in Germany. Again, it looks as if the lad is keen to come and join us. I think from what I read on X this morning, he's even willing to sign up and stay at Hansa for the rest of the season, which I think would be interesting. But I think the improved offer has been rejected by the club. So maybe Doug, will come to you first just to get your thoughts on that kind of transfer update this morning, and what do you think will happen over the next kind of 2-3 days.
Yeah, it's been an exciting week. We've had a couple of rumours sort of pop up and things happening in both directions. For this one in particular, I do get the feeling the club want to get him in now. In particular, because, or in addition to the fact that it would seem that Danilo is en route out as well. So that would be, an obvious kind of one in, one out scenario. And I would prefer that we weren't having to wait. At the end of the day, if they think he's the right player, then and that's the only way to make it happen, then fine. But we need more clinical striking. We need more clinical strikers and attackers. Obviously, Skov Olsen will hopefully solve the problem to some degree in the attackers form. There are some rumours about some other wingers or midfielders coming in that would hopefully add to that. But the jewel of the crown, I think any truly great team always has that clinical striker, that guy that gets goals when it matters in big games. For the last decade, that guy's been our right back, and we need to change that. So, Trimiti has come on in the last month. Spoiler alert, he might feature in the Player of the Month members thing as a result of that improvement. But he's still not scoring loads of goals. He got his 2 goals against Celtic, and you can build a wee mini career if you get a few good goals against Celtic. But he's not scored since. But he's doing a lot of the hard work, which is keeping him in the team. But we really need someone that can do both for the run in to a title. Our defence, as much as we sort of malign it at times, is the best in the league alongside Motherwell's. So as much as we can still make improvements there, I kind of feel like, right, well, if they're the best right now, they can carry on to do that. It's that upfront area that I worry about. We will at some point hit a game where someone's just going to be really stubborn and super well organized, and we're going to struggle. And that's when you need that player. That's why we drew so many games in the first half of the season. So yeah, if this guy is someone that they think can score goals, then I'd like to get him in now, so that he's got an opportunity to benefit us.
Yeah, I certainly agree, Doug. I think from being proactive in the window, in the early part of the window by getting Skov Olsen, Chukwani and Tura Romans in, we've done the kind of essential business. I know that they said that they would maybe sit back and see how the window plays out. But certainly in the next 2 or 3 days, I'd like to think we'll maybe get 1 or 2 more bodies in. Billy, coming to you, just again touching on what Doug said, I think, last night was a perfect example of kind of what we lacked. I know we didn't have the new signings available to us last night, but that kind of lack of creativity and clinical edge at the front end of the park, was kind of glaringly obvious. I know that we had been linked with this boy Naderi. I know that that it seems as if Joe Piro from Leeds has also been mentioned in similar conversations. There's some conflicting reports coming out this morning that he's maybe not as keen to come up north as initially thought of. Do you think over the next 2 or 3 days we'll manage to get that that creative element in to help support the likes of Skov Olsen and Chermiti and Miofsky to try and help them be more clinical in front of goal?
Well, I mean, what you can't doubt is that that the current owners are active and they're trying to get business done. And Danny Rule was quite upfront, and I quite liked the plan we had, which was there's a business we need to get done. We're going to get it done, and then we're going to be nimble and proactive and see what becomes available, because very often one transfer makes another player available. I mean, on Piero, if he is reticent about coming up north, fine, let's not do it. I've seen enough situations where someone moves just for the sake of getting a move. If he isn't fired up at the prospect of coming up and getting in a title race, he's probably not going to be much use to us. I know that maybe seems a bit reductive, but that I don't know that he's not reticent. I'm just going off the latest news, and if that's accurate, then he's probably not going to be the guy we need. Naderi's kind of interesting because he's kind of like the life of a Rangers fan is like you've got two guys sort of in your head sort of shouting the opposite to each other, and I've got like on Naderi, part of me's going, he's playing for Hansa Rostock, so they're right up at the top of the table in the title race in the third tier in Germany, but that's still the 40th best team in Germany, and if it was the 40th best team in Scotland, we wouldn't be thinking this guy's going to come in and hit the ground running. So part of me is going, is it realistic to expect him to have an impact as quickly? The flip side of that is I spent a lot of the early season grumbling, why can't we find players like Claudio Braga in the second tier in the Norwegian league? Because clearly there are gems out there to be found, and the 49ers are supposed to be big on data. So we were all kind of grumbling about Thelwell, like fishing in the same small pond, and we wanted the net going further afield. Well, this is what it looks like. So the bit of me that's kind of going, really, third tier Bundesliga striker, is that not more of a project player? I can't have it both ways. So if the data is identifying this guy, I mean, he's he looks like a unit. He's fitting that Danny Rule plan of making us bigger, which I suspect Lyle Cameron is maybe falling foul of, in that we already have two not massive midfielders in Barron and Raskin, and he's thought, I can't have three small midfielders, so one of them is going to have to go. But I'm certainly, Naderi looks like he's about 6'4", decent scoring records. We can, like Doug says, we could do with a striker, whether Danilo goes or not. And if someone wants to pay $2 million for Danilo, which I'm sceptical about, I'd be taking it because the injuries have diminished him as a player. Sadly, not his fault. If anything, he got injured by being brave, and you're trying his best. So that happens in a career. But you saw that goal the other day that he scored for us was actually kind of indicative of the best and worst that he has to offer now. He's a very good technical finisher, and he got to a certain point, he was getting closed down, and he got the shot away, and does the keeper by kind of just pinging it when he does. However, he was not quite towing a caravan, but he was getting caught. You could see the pace wasn't there. He doesn't get physically involved in the game. So I could see him going out whether we get $2 million or not. And in that case, Chermiti is definitely developing as a player. We see that in flashes against Porto. Some of the hold-up play, you can see why Fenerbahce are looking at his underlying data. It'd be nice if his overlying data was actually a wee bit more going if we were getting a few more goals out of him, but you can see him developing. Miofsky has been hit and miss so far, but I still have a suspicion we're not playing to his strengths. We're not sliding the ball through for him in a way that he's used to running onto. And you kind of go, well, is that his fault or is that ours? We bought a certain type of player. Either way, getting a clinical striker in, I think us and about 500 other clubs are trying to do that. I just hope that whatever we're doing in identifying Naderi is the answer, because if he could come in and even contribute 8-10 goals in the run-in, this team, like Doug says, this team gives you the fear in that we don't run over teams. So you find a day where a couple of shots hit the post and the opposition's being stuffy or going man to man like Dundee, and suddenly you're up against it. And, the run in could be very marginal moments of, someone nicking a goal with a couple of minutes to go and things swing. So not very optimistic about the chap from Leeds, but Nadiri, I'd like to see what this data model harvests. I'd like to get Nadiri in and go, right, this is our equivalent to Claudio Braga. What does it look like? So fingers crossed. I think we're doing a big all day pod thing on Monday for the transfer window. So yeah, here's hoping there's a wee bit of excitement on the way in rather than the way out.
Yeah, exactly, Billy. I think as you mentioned there, the fact that we've got the deadline day pod kind of over several hours on Monday. I'm sure that everyone that's going to be joining that will be looking forward to hopefully some movement in and out, just to keep the discussion rolling on. Just as we're talking about transfers, I know that I've seen that from a couple of the comments in the chat there that this morning we're been linked with Cameron Archer from Southampton. I think he was initially with Aston Villa. Another kind of mobile striker. I'm not sure of his stats. I'm not going to throw you under the bus, Doug, but at the same time, do you know much about Cameron Archer? Just from what you've heard or from previous rumours from when he was at Villa. I think we had maybe looked at him previously. I'm not sure if that was under Gio or under Beale, but I think it's somebody that we've had an interest in the past.
Yeah, I think so. The name sort of vaguely rings a bell, but I must say I'm not super familiar with him. His career's fine. Like I say, he's at Southampton just now. He was at Sheffield United before that, and Villa. Played at Middlesbrough. But the only thing that would worry me is that from what I remember, and in fact I've got it up here, he's never really had a particularly prolific goal scored season. Maybe Middlesbrough 22-23 got 11 goals in 23 appearances with 6 assists, so that's probably the best. But that's going back to 22-23. It's all been single digits since then. So that would kind of be my worry, is that I want to see us looking at some folk that do have decent, at least regular double digits. So even if it's only 10, if it's 10 over 3 or 4 seasons, to me that shows an ability to maintain a bit of form and things, because at the end of the day, someone can score. Like Deschers is a great example. Deschers' numbers weren't fantastic, but they were fairly regular, and then he came here and he just hit it off, and his 2 best seasons goal scoring were with us. So for me, that's the kind of thing I look for, is like, right, is there a sort of a decent level of consistency? If there's consistency, that tells me the player can maintain quality over a period of time. The danger with signing someone who's only got, say, like one really good year is that just one really good year, and will they get found out the following year once the defenders all know them and things like that? So that's kind of what I would look at. So he doesn't immediately spring or make me particularly excited, but as I say, I'm not hugely familiar with him, so I'll not count him out. But from a cursory reading, I would hope that we can maybe find someone with a few more goals in their history.
Sure. No, I agree, Doug. I think if it, I think just as yourself and Billy both touched on there, I think if we were to go for a striking option or a creative option, we'd certainly be looking for someone with a bit of experience and consistency. I know Nadiri is I think Billy, as you touched on, he's relatively consistent, although being in the third division in Germany. But again, that maybe is the route that we need to start going down more, and obviously move away from looking at these English Championship players that haven't really done the business for us over the last however number of years you want to go back and count. So it will certainly be interesting. I think in our chat, folk are certainly championing the rumour with Piro. But obviously we'll just need to wait and see how things go. Maybe just move into the outbound players or potential outbound players. I think this week, there was rumours abound that Rothwell had packed up his locker and it could be saying his goodbyes. I think Sheffield United were the ones that were potentially in for him for some form of deal. Obviously, nothing's been confirmed as yet by either club, but that certainly seems to be one that's in process of leaving. Billy, maybe come to you. I know you mentioned Danilo, but is there anyone else you think we should try and move out this window? I know it's notoriously difficult to get players in and out, but if you had the opportunity to do so, is there anyone else that you would look at to say, your time at the club is over and thanks, but see yourself out quietly?
I mean, Rothwell is an obvious one because it's been such a disappointment, and it's funny. Even he came in, he looked okay in his first game, and even when he was struggling, I remember Scotty on one of the pods I was on saying he will come good, and I definitely defer to Scotty's knowledge of all things Leeds, because I know that's like a team he follows quite closely. That makes me think something's gone wrong here, whether it's his attitude or whether it's age catching up with him. Maybe it's an injury that means he thought, like a lot of players seem to do, that okay, this makes perfect sense. As you get older as a player and your body starts, all those little niggles and wears and tears and hip injuries and stuff, you think, right, okay, I'll go down a level. And a lot of players make the mistake of thinking that when you come to Scotland, you're going down a level, which in some technical regards is true. But in terms of physical demands and the pace of the game and how you get closed down, especially if you play for Rangers, it's quite the opposite. And I don't know what the case is with Rothwell. If it's an injury, he's hardly likely to be advertising it. If he's lost a yard of pace, his agent's not going to be running around telling people that. So it will be interesting to see what comes out down the line. I'd love to know, just from a nosiness point of view, because I do remember at one point when he wasn't thriving under Russell Martin, he liked we live in a world where everyone's an Instagram and social media detective, and I can't be done with it, to be honest, but it did come out that he liked a tweet criticising Russell Martin, which, to be honest, at the time everyone was criticising Russell Martin, but he was probably the only player who went public on it. And I always wonder about what that says about attitude. Are you putting yourself in front of the manager and the team? So I'd happily see him out. No harm to him. Like, it didn't work out. Like, I hope he goes and does well somewhere else. But I'll be interested to see what happens. Does he go down levels like a Kieran Dowell and then looks like a player? Or is he actually just in decline? I mean, the other, like Danilo would go with best wishes, and it just hasn't worked out. And it would be nice to get that reputed 30 grand a week off the wage bill. The other ones are obvious stuff, like could you get rid of Matondo? Probably not, because his hamstring would go somewhere between the medical and signing on. And again, it's not a criticism of Rabbi Matondo. He's actually looked fine in flashes, but we took a gamble. He'd gone for big money. We got him for lesser money. He will go for no money. So we literally bought him when he was kind of going off a cliff, unfortunately. That kind of cutting, that sort of for what I don't mean deadwood in a derogatory term, but that sort of deadwood away from a squad that's going into a title run in, for me, would be making space for bringing in one or two more. But I mean, I don't think there's any massive surprises. Like I say, the one for me that's actually has been a surprise the last couple of weeks is I'd happily seen Finlay Curtis going to Kilmarnock to get minutes there and develop. And now, let's say, I'm just looking at it and I'm going, Mikey Moore may well be high impact in the latter part of the season, but Finlay Curtis does what he does, and last night what he did was got us a goal. Had we not had the defensive howlers that we had, that could have been a goal that got us a point or 3 points. So in Scotland he could be decisive. So yeah, I'd see those three out. I don't know if if Doug's probably more encyclopedia knowledge of these things, so he's probably got another 3 waiting to go. But those are the ones that would be obvious to me.
Yeah, that's great, Billy. I think, just as you said, I think it was interesting, obviously, when Rothwell came in, just to touch back on him for a moment, that he seemed to pull in the majority of fans' eyes be that linchpin of a Russell Martin team. He'd done well at Leeds. He'd played with under Martin at Southampton and had done well in that championship winning season. And as Scotty and others have said on in previous pods, he's an accomplished midfielder in the English Championship. So it certainly didn't look as if we were taking a massive risk by bringing him up. But I certainly don't think he was. I think similar goes with the likes of Ant-Man and even Gassama to a certain extent, that they've just not been played in their favoured position. I think Rothwell had mentioned he's more of a box-to-box midfielder. He wasn't an out-and-out six, despite being given that number or choosing that number. If you look back over his interview, but yeah, I certainly just don't think it's worked out for him. Again, if it goes, it's just obviously one of these, another failed championship player that's come up to the Scottish division and found it a struggle. Same with Matondo. I know that in the comments, and there's mention that Philippe Clement wants him at Norwich, or appears to want him at Norwich. So again, if he was to make a move on deadline day, I don't think anyone would be too sad to see him leave. But Doug, maybe just come to you just to touch on it briefly. Is there anyone else that you think could potentially exit the club before the deadline on Monday night?
I think Billy's covered the main two. Rothwell and Matondo would be the ones that I'd be keen to see. Let's see, Rothwell's obviously been linked, and I think he probably will go out before. Other than that, though, I don't think there's really anyone else obvious. We've covered Danilo, which is the other one that's obviously linked. Maybe Enciala on loan. There was some rumours about him going to Motherwell. If he's not going to get opportunities, then again, I think him going out on loan could be good for his development. Because as I say, I think he has shown glimpses of being a decent player. So if we can put him out for some minutes, then that would be a positive. But other than that, I'm sort of just scrolling through the squad, and I don't really see. You've got Bajrami there, who has obviously continued to not sort of break into the team, but I feel like he could be useful from a squad perspective if there are further injuries. Bailey Rice is out of contract in the summer, so depending on what the deal is with him, do you let him go? But yeah, there's not really nobody that's like a star. I don't think there's anyone else that's a starter that's likely to go. We seem to be quite firm on that. It's been a slight interesting. I feel like an interesting difference in perspective from the board. We've seemingly had these rumours of big bids for Chermiti and Gassama for amounts that may well have shifted them in previous years. But I really do get the impression that the board is sitting there going, there's a title to be won here, and these are first team players, so they're not going anywhere. And I've made the joke a couple of times myself. It's, yes, it seems like a crazy notion to turn down 13 million for a player like Chermiti, especially how the signing came about and everything else. But at the same time, why sell him for 13 million when he can win a double and then go for 20? And that would be ideal. But I kind of like that the board seem to be aligned with this idea of, there's a title here, we want to keep these players. Although we do have misgivings to some degree, I see there's I think an element of the sort of the better the devil kind of thing. Chermiti has been here for the season. He's starting to show an upward trend. Danny Rowe, at this point, I think we'll know what he is getting out of him and what he can potentially get out of him. Whereas obviously anyone that comes in is starting from the scratch, has to get themselves into the team, and regardless, that's going to take a couple of weeks for any player. So yeah, I don't think we'll see any other major moves unless some kind of silly bid comes in. Maybe someone panics at the last minute and offers us 20 million for Raskin or something. That would be the only thing I think that could potentially change that, is if, like I say, someone panics and goes, quick, throw some money for one of the big players. But other than that, I don't think we'll see much in that direction.
Sure, no, I get that, Doug. I think it probably just goes back to what the manager said as well, is that they obviously don't want to weaken the squad probably this late into the window by letting players go that haven't already been earmarked as for leaving. I guess the question, just to try and wrap up on the transfer chat, probably just say yourself, Doug, and in one word, if we weren't to sign anyone else in for the window, and we're just left with the three signings that we've made so far, would you think that's been a good window for the club?
I would categorise it as okay, because I think we'd have covered. I think for most people there were. Well, I was going to say for most people there was three, but not thinking. But most people wanted, I think, players in every area. But we needed a left back. We only have one. So that was a big area. We've addressed that. We really needed some cover at someone in at the right side. We've addressed that not only with a body, but with a really exciting prospect of a player. The other big thing, though, is that striker. I still think, for me anyway, some people I think want a centre back. Some people want a number 6. For me, though, the striker's a big one. So if we don't get a striker in, I'll say it's been 60% of a good window, but the striker could make that much of a difference that I'll be disappointed if we don't manage to do something.
Okay. Same question to you, Billy. Do you think that if we don't make any more, or there isn't any more players incoming, and potentially we don't lose anyone, do you think that's enough to see us over the line come the middle to end of May?
Before answering that, just want to address some scurrilous comments that are coming in about the jumper. It's been 3 months since Edmondsgate, and I looked at the jumper the day and I went, it's January in Sweden, I'm freezing. Nobody's going to take offence at wearing a jumper. Oh boy, was I wrong. Curry Muncher and Balvenie Boy are having the right go at it. Balvenie Boy in particular saying looks like it's designed to ward off predators. I'll bear that in mind the next time I'm going to a Celtic game at Parkhead. Stick that on. Balvenie Boy also ripping in and asking if I'm going through a Ziggy Stardust phase. Now, I did that when I was about 14 and I had the hair to go with it. I think the winner, though, is suggesting that I look like I'm about to do an Aztec sacrifice. That's for members only. So if you want to subscribe and get the exclusive tier, you get to see that as well. To answer your question, I've dealt with the sort of online bullying. Only joking, by the way. You can bring it. I'm still wearing nonsense clothes. I think it's meh. I think it started really well. And what we've done is what you would hope a grown-up football club would do. We've brought in girders rather than cladding. We've brought in the things for the building that we kind of need to stop it falling down potentially in the second half of the season. And it's great to see two Romans coming in. It's nice to see a little bit of sort of attacking threat. I still feel like it would be nice to get one or two more in like that. Like Doug says, someone who's going to get us some goals, a penalty box striker. And you just, every time that conversation comes up, you think back to the closed season and Lon Shanklin sitting by his phone on a free. And it reminds you why. Doesn't matter if Shermiti's coming on to a game now, and it doesn't matter if like some of his signings are looking all right. Like Fernandez, Thelwell was negligent in the summer, and the manager he brought in, and the way he dispersed funds, and some of the players he didn't bring in. So definitely would like to see someone who can get us some goals. One of the posters had actually had put a comment about, do we actually need a right back now? Because at the moment, both of our right back options are not good. If you're going into a big game, if Aarons is it just doesn't look like he really likes being up here at a big club. Don't get me started in that dive last night. I know it's modern football and we all hate it as Rangers fans, but that's the kind of thing that has opposition fans laughing at you. And Tav, like say, if we had to play Tav in like an Old Firm game, other than maybe for 30 minutes or in the centre or doing a specific role, you'd be sticking my head on him, and you'd be worried because he's in decline. So almost like a right back, you're now thinking after last night, but definitely. I'm kind of the same as Doug. There's still areas around the pitch, like the striker. You could see us needing midfield. You could see us needing help in defence. So at the moment, I would say we started really well, and if that's what it is, it'll probably feel underwhelming because we started quick and then it sort of petered out. If we could just add a wee bit of to Nick Balvenie boys' term, stardust to kind of add towards the end of it, then that would make me a lot happier. And just to finish with Balvenie boy, if you want to take me on in David Bowie puns, let's go. David Bowie 1969 to 1983 would be my mastermind subject. So if you want to start trading those anytime.
Yeah, I'm sure you give as good as you get, Billy. Certainly, but yeah, just to wrap up on that, I do think, just as some of the comments, Baron Loyal saying there, the spine's most important, can probably get away with a right back at the moment. Saying a right back and goal machine up top. We need, I think, probably the right back will be addressed in the summer with Aaron's going back from his loan, and obviously things still kind of up in the air with Tav. I certainly think if you gave me the choice, I'd certainly go for top of the park as a priority if that's what we're doing in this window, to get someone in. I think right back we can probably address in the summer, between Tav, Aarons, and obviously I know Sterling's not the most consistent of players with injury, but the fact we could potentially just limp through, pardon the pun, through to the summer with those two or three, then I certainly don't think it's as critical in this window to get someone. But conscious of time, guys, so we'll maybe just start wrapping up. We'll touch on the Hibs game in a moment, but I'll just shout out to the women's team. They've got their Sky Sports Cup semi-final against the other half of the Old Firm on Sunday afternoon. Kickoff's 1:40, so if you're unable to make it through to Edinburgh to go to the men's game, then the women are always welcome with the support, and obviously just hope they get through to the final to retain the cup again. I know they've been pretty successful in that cup competition over the last 2 or 3 years, so it would be good to see the women's team get through to the final and lift that one again and keep it in the Ibrox trophy room. But moving on to the Hibs game briefly, I know we've only got a few minutes left. We'll maybe just touch on it. Doug, do you think that, I guess there will probably be changes? The new signings probably coming back in. I think Tua Robbins is still maybe a week or so away from making his debut, but I suspect Scott Wilson and Chuck Wani will come back into the reckoning for Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just say it's good to see Billy standing up for himself and putting these guys a bit under pressure. So I don't want to see Balvenie boy leading them on a magic dance. So, but yeah, the Hibs game, it's a good one to get our teeth back into things. Billy mentioned earlier getting thumped from Juventus. We did indeed get thumped by Juventus in October '95, and the game after that was against an Edinburgh team, which we won 4-1. Two goals from Oleg Selenko, a goal by Gasa, and Jukebox Jury that day. So hopefully that tells well for the game of the weekend. It's another big game. They're all big games now. Like you said, we've got about 16 or so left. Everyone's basically a cup final as we now push on. And I think I said last weekend that was going to be a proper sort of sliding doors moment for the season, with the sort of the obviously the other two facing each other, and as long as we won, we would come out of it with the win for the weekend, and that came true. We now need to do what we've often failed to do in the past, which is when we do. One of our biggest failing has been not taking advantage of situations that have come up for us, particularly when sort of Celtic have dropped points. Last weekend, we took advantage of a situation In the past, when we have managed to do that, though, we've often stumbled after that. So I'm hoping that we go into this, we can have a good performance. Pick ourselves back up after the European game and get a win to consolidate the fact that we've moved ourselves ahead of Celtic. We're now chasing Hearts. We're here now to put them under pressure and see, you're having a great season. You're top of the league. You could do the unthinkable and sort of break the old firm. The pressure's on you now, as we're in the post-January run-in, and so we need to keep that pressure up, and that starts at Hibs and winning this game. We've done well. I think we've won all three against Hibs, I believe. 1-2-0 and 2-1-0. So they have been tough games, but we should go into it confident. We've been on a really good run. Yes, yesterday's game was a blip, but back on the horse, and like you say, there will be a few changes. I expect to see Scott Wilson probably start. I expect to potentially see Suter come in as well, and I think both of those will help improve the team. So, yeah, as to say, another big weekend, and hopefully we can get the points on the board and just keep plowing away.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed, Doug. I think the last time we were in Edinburgh at Easter Road, it was a 1-0 win with Danilo getting the goal and Danilo's dad going mental. So if we could see similar scenes on Sunday afternoon, I think we'd all be welcome to it. Billy, just to wrap up, I know we're in kind of added time at the moment. Again, conscious of the time. Do you think we'll get the win on Sunday, or at least come out with a positive result?
I do, just on the basis that past performance is your best guide to future performance. So we seem to be grinding out results. I'm not entirely convinced that Celtic are going to find it a cakewalk against Falkirk. They expended a lot of energy, and Falkirk ran them very close last time and quite unlucky based on what I saw. Interestingly, to keep the theme going, Hibs might be weakened by the fact that Bowie's moving on. So bringing things full circle, and also a big tip of the hat to Doug with a very deep cut Magic Dance from the Labyrinth soundtrack. That's about 85, 86, and definitely going into a bit of a creative lull at that point in time. But I think my take is I think on Sunday will be hunky-dory.
I'm loving this, guys. I think we'll maybe take this into a different pod, maybe a members pod. So yeah, certainly subscribe, and we'll certainly bring more Bowie related puns and stories to the guys if you want it. But yeah, totally agree with what you were saying, Billy. I think if we can go ahead and get the win on Sunday, it keeps the pressure up at the top of the table. Falkirk are in with a good bit of form against the other side of the city. So again, you're hoping that they are, although they had a positive result last night, they come back and maybe waver again in the league. But again, we can only focus on our own team, and hopefully we can get the win come, I think it's 2:00 kickoff on Sunday. So yeah,
we can be heroes, Bob.
We could be heroes indeed, but Doug, I think that's probably a perfect line to end on. So yeah, thank you very much today to Billy and Doug and all the Bowie enthusiasts, and the David Bowie, I should say, enthusiasts, not Kieran Bowie, but David Bowie enthusiasts in the chat. It's been certainly worthwhile. It's been a good chat today. Just on the Hibs game on Sunday, we will have our pre-match and post-match pods, and then, as I said, we'll also have the deadline day pod running through live into the late hours of Monday night. But once again, it just leaves me to thank Billy and Doug for coming on today and sharing and discussing the Rangers news. Again, shout out to our friends over at the Bluebells Bar in Puerto del Carmen in Lanzarote, and once again, QR code for the merch if you fancy getting yourself a bit of Rangers Journal gear to help support the pod. With that being said, all there is for me to say is every night's a Rangers Journal night. Have a good weekend, folks, and we will see you very soon. Bye for now.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.